All right, guys, it's Paul Singh, the Market Speculator, with the free weekly swing trade report, bullsonwallstreet.com, May 22nd, 2021. What a week it was. Last we talked, Coffee with Paul, those of you who joined last week, and of course you could watch the replay on the YouTube channel. This is where the market was that Friday. And then we can see what happened this Friday. We essentially are back at the exact same place. SPY here, pretty much the same place, actually a little bit lower, but back up over the 9. But look at what happened in between. Very volatile market last week, and we end up in the same place we started. Not surprising, this is the way May often plays out. Either no volatility or a little bit of volatility that ends up going nowhere. And that's what we're seeing right now. Now, overall, we could have broke down here and we tested the 50-day moving average and held. So kind of getting out of that range, we really need to fill this gap here at, this was the Monday 510 candle. If we can fill this gap next week, I think just closing above that level would be constructive. And if we can start to break through here, obviously that would be very good. Qs, which have really been beaten down, we know that. Same pattern, closed above the 9. On Thursday, we actually got up over the 50-day moving average, and we fell back a little bit today, but the pattern's still there. Pretty much the same thing, what we're looking for next week. We want to see continuation here. And if we could get up in this range, that would be good. That would start to signal to us that we are holding the 50-day moving average, that these lows are going to hold. And these lows are key because if we start to continue off here, what it does is we have another set of higher lows that continue the trend. As you can see here, low, higher low, higher low, higher low, and that's what we want to see here as well. That keeps the trend going. We don't want to see it fall off and make a lower low, which we have not seen yet. Now, IWM, small caps, another story. Maybe not quite a lower low, but we've tested the lows here. And this has been basically now range-bound action throughout most of 2021 here with the small caps. And obviously we want to see that improve. And again, testing the 50-day moving average. So that's what we're seeing with the market right now. That's what we know what we're going to be looking at going into next week. We want to see continuation, especially in the Qs here. I'm really interested here. See if we can get some continuation, and if we start to falter, probably not a good thing. So I'll start to get more aggressive. As a good swing trader, you need to know when to really push it, when to step back, and this is step back mode. Watch and see. We are in a few positions right now, which we'll go over in a little bit, but we'll see how the market plays out next week. Let's look at a few interesting sectors and industries. Energy, and we are actually in energy right now, and you can see here, the pattern is still there. We are seeing a little bit of relative strength compared to the market, especially compared to technology. But again, pandemic low, higher low, big bottom formation, kind of a cup and handle now. And we're looking for that breakout out of this handle here. And this handle has been basically forming for about 2 months now. So love to see a break here. If we get the break out of this range, maybe we see a test of the pre-pandemic range there in energy. So energy is in play, as is financials. As you can see here, financials showing extreme relative strength to the market. Again, especially technology. We know technology down below the 50-day moving average, and look at where financials are. Financials are above. So definitely be paying attention to financials. Now, housing is interesting because it was moving lockstep with financials, actually a little stronger, but now the past couple of weeks here, put in a top. This was a reversal candle right here. You see that inverted hammer, and has basically been going down ever since, and now testing that 50-day moving average. If it starts to break here, we could easily see a move back to the February range here at 65. So we are seeing some weakness in relative strength leader home builders. And then let's take a look at a couple of the high-flying areas, blockchain and crypto and electric. And if we go to some of the blockchain stocks, let's actually start with crypto. If we look at some of the crypto stocks we're following, here's a list here. of a few of them. Some of these are more pure blockchain type stocks. Some of them are crypto, like blockchain trust, Coinbase here. So more pure plays. And then we have the kind of secondary plays like NVIDIA that are involved in that area, but that's not necessarily exactly what they do. NVIDIA, AMD, PayPal, Square. So let's start with the Bitcoin Trust. Looks very toppish, and it's been crushed here, but it does look like obviously if it bounced here, it would be continuation pattern, a strong bounce here. But right now it looks very toppish, and it still looks like there's room to the downside here. Maybe it finds support here around 17, and this is a trust again. And here, we broke the 2017 high in GBTC back in here. And obviously this doesn't move exactly with Bitcoin, but pretty close, at least near term. Coinbase, very weak since it IPO'd. I'm watching Riot and Mara very closely. These look toppish too, and barely holding on to that 200-day moving average, both Riot and Mara here. And here's a blockchain ETF. Looks very similar to the Bitcoin Trust, but this is not Bitcoin. This is actually a lot of stocks like we're tracking here of different stocks in that space. So looking pretty weak here. In that space, I would not be looking to go long unless I saw some strength, and there might be some short opportunities as well. Now let's go to electric, and let's go over. We can see over the last 5 days, Ride has been the strongest, and then all the way down here to Tesla, which has been one of the weakest, and Tesla usually leads. We are in some of these spots here. We have seen bounces off lows. So watching now, what do these bounces do? Almost all of these things have bounced, except for Tesla, which really hasn't. But the rest of these guys have all bounced off their recent lows. The question now is, do they hit into resistance and fail, and that might give more short opportunities? Or do they remount these levels and set up a summer type move? And you can see some of these are a little stronger for that potential play, like FCell Unplug, Seji, and so on. So watching this area very closely, not making any predictions. And software had been crushed. Here's one of the software ETFs, IGV. You can see here basically since February, a lot of back and forth. And now, started breaking down below the 9, which it was holding for most of this run through the pandemic low. Then breaks down below the 50-day moving average, and now testing the 200-day moving average. And if this fails, we could see something to downside. And again, we're not predicting short opportunities here, but if we see failure here now, we could see a lot of potential shorts in a lot of the different software stocks. So there's some of the industries we're watching. Obviously, we're watching more of those as well. Let's quickly look at big tech. Obviously, we're always watching big tech. Let's start with some of the better ones. Facebook, the two that had really good earnings of the FANG stocks were Google and Facebook. You can see this was the earnings on Facebook. Was pulled back since, held the 50-day moving average, remounted the 9. Looks very good here. I'm watching this one very closely. Google, very similar, broke out on earnings, pulled back, and now remounting its 9 EMA. And let's take a look at Amazon here. Amazon's interesting. It's basically been in a range for a long time. What is this, like 10 months here? August to now here. It's just been in this range. And the question is, does it break out and break down? We're not getting any good clues, but you see here long term, this has just been a range that it needs to break out. If a breakout of this range sets it up for another big run, a breakdown below this range, maybe it pulls back in and tests maybe this old high in 2018. No predictions here, but at some point, I think we're going to get a big move in Amazon. All right, let's now head over to the Qs and look at the top 10 performers. I do this every week for all of the different indexes here, but let's quickly do this for the NASDAQ, and I've got it filtered for the last 5 days. Number one in the NASDAQ is NTES. We were watching this very closely. Some of Bulls on Wall Street members actually traded this one. I did not, but looks pretty good here. It's a China internet company and has been showing relative strength to other China stocks, especially in this space. So, tested the 200, rebounded the moving averages here, big breakout. Obviously, one we should be watching. Specialty retail, PDD and JD, both making nice moves here. Now it needs to remount the 50-day moving average. JD similar, but has more work to do. I wouldn't touch this one. we are watching MRVL, and I didn't mention semiconductors, but we're watching a lot of semiconductor stocks very closely. Here's MRVL. We're watching for this one to remount the 50-day moving average, which is close. XLNX is another good one. There's a bunch of them in here as well. Let's look at Peloton real quick. Last one in the NASDAQ. Now, Peloton has been crushed as a lot of that quote-unquote at-home type stuff. Obviously, this is at-home exercise, at-home work, like Zoom and work and a few others. Healthcare like TDoc. All of these have been hit very hard. Interestingly enough, Peloton had that horrible news where I think a kid died on one of their machines, had this huge spike down after already a big move down. But that has been the low. That bad news was the low and has been bouncing ever since. So it'll be interesting to see. Does it fail now here, or do we remount the 200-day moving average? Finally, let's look at a couple of our Bulls on Wall Street alerts here. We have Twitter. This is a gap down reversal, still holding the 200 and the 9 EMA, targeting the 50. And we've got ADBE. Adobe had pulled back, looked like it was going to break down, remounted the 200-day moving average, and now looks back on trend. All right, guys. So that's the weekly swing report. Remember, next week we'll be live Coffee with Paul if you want to join on the weekend. And then, of course, if you want more, sign up for the Swing Trade Part-Time Trader report. All right. I will see you guys either in the report on Monday or next week at Coffee with Paul.